Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When Aiden Shaw returned home after a grueling trip, he expected peace, not a 6-foot eviction banner on his lawn. Overnight, his house was taken over by a fake HOA, armed with forged deeds, surveillance, and beige paint. But they picked the wrong man to scam. This was war, and he was ready. I got home late on a Thursday. I just wrapped up a 3-day site review in Utah, inspecting a framing crew that couldn't tell the difference between a joist and a liability lawsuit. I was road-tired, dust-covered, and craving nothing more than a long shower, a steak, and the quiet hum of my own property in Desert Hills. Instead, I turned into my driveway and slammed the brakes so hard I spilled coffee all over the passenger seat. There it was, right on my front lawn, a 6-foot-wide vinyl banner zip-tied to metal stakes and billowing like some deranged conqueror's flag. This property now belongs to Desert Hills Estates HOA. Unauthorized occupants will be removed. For a moment, I genuinely thought I'd driven onto the wrong property. Maybe the week on the road had scrambled my GPS and my brain. But no, the address on my mailbox was right. The rust stain on the curb was right. Even the damn hummingbird feeder I forgot to refill was swaying in the wind. This was my house, my land, my goddamn home. And someone had the audacity to post an eviction banner on it. I got out, walked slowly toward the sign like it might explode, then spotted something worse taped to my front door. An eviction notice, printed in Comic Sans no less. No court stamp, no official seal, just a faux legal tone and a signature from someone calling themselves Chief Compliance Officer, Desert Hills Estates. There was no HOA here, never had been. When I bought these 2 lots 5 years ago, one to live in and one to rent out, I made damn sure they were outside any HOA jurisdiction. I'd checked the parcel maps myself, cross-referenced city and county records, even had my own lawyer verify it. The only compliance officer around here was me. As I was ripping down the notice, I noticed something else. The backyard gate had been freshly painted. Bright beige. HOA beige. The same soulless color every house in their development used. And then I saw them. New surveillance cameras bolted into my fence posts. Branded. HOA branded. They weren't there when I left, which meant someone, plural, had entered my property while I was away. They painted my fence. They installed hardware. They put up signage. It wasn't just an attempt to intimidate me. It was a performance, a hostile takeover by beige-wearing suburban fascists. I was about to call my lawyer when I heard footsteps crunching across the gravel path beside the house. 3 figures rounded the corner like they were on a tour. 2 men in polo shirts and khakis, and a woman with tightly curled blonde hair, an expensive clipboard, and the face of someone who'd never been told no in her life. "Mr. Shaw," she said brightly, as if we were meeting for brunch. "I'm Karen Browning, president of the Desert Hills Estates Homeowners Association. I'm glad we caught you." I didn't answer, just stared. Karen gestured at the 2 men behind her. "These are our compliance field officers, David and Rick. We're here to formally inform you that the property you're currently occupying has been absorbed into the Desert Hills Estates Community Plan as of last quarter. Ownership has transferred, and you're listed as an unlawful occupant pending removal proceedings." I blinked. "I'm sorry, did you just say absorbed?" She smiled like I was a toddler who'd asked where babies come from. "Yes. Your parcel has been incorporated into the HOA Master Overlay following the recent acquisition by our affiliated trust, Los Horizon Holdings. You should have received documentation." "No," I said flatly. "I didn't receive documentation. And even if I had, that wouldn't make this legal. This is private property, owned by me. I've got the deeds, the titles, the damn tax receipts." Karen tilted her head sympathetically. "You may want to check the updated registry. A sale was processed in your absence. Very efficient. We're happy to walk you through the steps of vacating the premises without incident." I took a slow breath, trying not to lose it. "Let me get this straight. You broke onto my land, repainted my gate, installed surveillance, and now you're telling me I don't live here anymore?" "Technically," Karen said, "you're squatting." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out short and sharp, like a bark. "You think I'm squatting in my own home?" Karen flipped a page on her clipboard. The title now lists Los Horizon Holdings as owner of record. We have a copy of the transfer here, signed, notarized, perfectly valid. Shall I show you? I snatched the sheet from her hands. My name was printed clearly. A signature, supposedly mine, slashed across the bottom. It looked like a third grader had traced it. Sloppy, unpracticed, definitely not mine. This is a forgery. Well, she said, unfazed, if you feel that way, you're welcome to contest it. But for now, we've been instructed to begin compliance inspections and initiate tenant removal protocols within 72 hours. Get off my property. Her smile faded slightly. Mr. Shaw, there's no need to escalate. We're trying to be reasonable. No, I snapped. You're trying to run a scam. And if I see one more piece of HOA plastic on my lawn, I'm calling the police. Actually, scratch that. I'm calling them right now. I pulled out my phone and dialed, watching Karen's mouth twist. The two polo-clad henchmen shifted uncomfortably. The sheriff's office picked up, and I calmly reported a case of unlawful entry and property tampering. When the deputy arrived 15 minutes later, Karen had already rehearsed her story, acting like this was all a misunderstanding between neighbors. The officer, a wiry guy in his 40s named Peters, listened to both sides, took my ID, glanced at the banner, and sighed. This sounds like a civil issue to me, he said. If there's a dispute over ownership, you'll need to resolve it through county court. Until then, I'd suggest you both keep your distance and avoid doing anything irreversible. I stared at him. She entered my land, painted my fence, installed surveillance gear. That's not irreversible. He gave me a tired look. Like I said, civil court. Karen beamed. Thank you, officer. We'll be happy to cooperate. As they walked off, Karen paused, looked back over her shoulder and said, You really should start packing. It's going to get a lot harder if you wait. I didn't answer. I was already planning my counterattack. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear. I've been in enough contractor disputes and late-night legal calls to develop a pretty high tolerance for stress, but because I was too busy printing paperwork and making calls. By sunrise, my dining table was covered in manila folders, notarized copies, PDF printouts, and a pot of coffee that could have stripped paint. I had to know exactly what these people thought they owned, and how deep this lunacy went. The first place I looked was the Clark County Recorder's online database. I'd used it when I bought the properties years ago. 2 side-by-side lots outside HOA borders, acquired directly at auction after the previous owners defaulted during the foreclosure waves. Clean titles, no liens, no encumbrances. So when I punched in the parcel number for the lot that included the rental home and saw a new transfer of title entry dated 4 days ago, my stomach did a slow roll. According to the database, ownership of parcel under Register 31B7702 had been transferred to a Nevada-registered LLC called Las Horizon Holdings. I clicked into the filing. The notary's stamp was digitally scanned. The buyer's signature was an unreadable scribble. The seller's signature, allegedly mine, looked like a 5-year-old had tried to imitate a doctor's prescription. It wasn't just off, it was laughably fake. I've signed enough contracts to know my own hand. I've notarized closings for clients. I know the legal chain of custody. There were no escrow records, no payment logs, no agent names, just an overnight deed transfer to a shell corporation I'd never heard of. But I had heard of that name, in Karen's mouth the day before. Las Horizon Holdings. That wasn't a buyer, that was a puppet. And now it had my property. I called Deborah Janes, my go-to real estate attorney, tough, sarcastic, and once sued a developer for cutting down a historic Joshua tree. I knew she'd be up by 7. Someone tried to forge a deed on me, I said. Used an LLC I've never seen. And they're using it to claim my house belongs to the HOA. Deborah was silent for a beat. Jesus, they're running a reverse quiet title scam. Feels like it. And they're trying to evict me as a renter. She told me to email her everything, copies, screenshots, timestamps. 20 minutes later, she called back. Well, first off, she said, Las Horizon Holdings is registered in Nevada, but it's managed by a trust out of Delaware, and the registered agent for that trust, a firm that's been flagged before for HOA shell activities. She paused. And guess who sits on the board of that trust? One Karen Browning, listed as a non-executive compliance consultant. My jaw clenched. So she created the LLC, had it buy my property through forged paperwork. And now her HOA is claiming jurisdiction over land they fake acquired using her own shell. Looks like it. Honestly, it's kind of brilliant. Insane and illegal, but definitely committed. She explained their angle. The HOA creates or co-ops an LLC, fakes a deed with a forged seller signature, rushes it through county recorders that don't verify identity in real time, and then claims the property falls under HOA rules. They then serve tenants or owners with eviction notices, citing community violations, and hope nobody has the knowledge or stomach to fight it. But they picked the wrong damn house, she finished. While Deborah drafted a restraining order and filed an emergency motion to freeze title changes, I drove to the Clark County Assessor's office in person. I wanted paper, physical, stamped, certified proof of ownership. The clerk pulled up the title history and confirmed it. The previous owner was me. 5 years uninterrupted. The sale to Los Horizon Holdings had been processed manually, a walk-in deed transfer handed in with a fake notary seal. No closing statement, no tax record, just a single-page deed and a smile apparently. Was this notarized in person? I asked. The clerk squinted. Supposedly in Reno. But our office doesn't check notary authenticity unless flagged, which meant they submitted it just before I got back in town, counting on a delay before it was noticed or contested. Standard smash and grab, only with paper instead of crowbars. As I left the building, I got a text from my tenant, Lexi, who lived in the adjacent rental. Some guy just came to the door saying he was from the HOA, said I had to schedule a compliance inspection this week. I nearly threw my phone into traffic. I told her not to answer the door again. Not until this was over. Back home, I installed 3 more security cameras, all of them feeding directly to a drive that couldn't be wiped remotely. Then I printed 3 huge signs. Private property, not part of any HO. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I staked one in front of each home. Just below them, I left laminated copies of the deed records with bold arrows pointing to my name. If they wanted a fight, it was officially on. By Monday, the signs were up, the cameras were rolling, and my attorney had filed for an emergency injunction to stop any further action by Los Horizon Holdings or their smiling HOA puppeteer. I figured that would buy me at least a few days of quiet while the courts churned. I was wrong. So very wrong. It started with a knock on my rental property's door around 10:30 in the morning. Lexi called me, voice tight and urgent. Some people are out here again. 2 men in khakis and a woman with a clipboard. Same ones from the other day, I think. They're saying they're with the HOA Compliance Division and need to conduct a mandatory inspection. I was already in the truck before she finished the sentence. I made it there in under 5 minutes, and sure enough, they were back. One of the goons, Rick I think, the taller one with a Bluetooth headset, was standing on Lexi's porch, peering through the windows like he was casing the place. Karen was by the gate, tapping away on her tablet like she was compiling code violations in real time. The third one was rattling the latch on the side gate between the homes. I pulled up fast and hard, gravel kicking out behind the tires, and stepped out, camera phone already recording. "Step away from the property," I said loudly, walking toward them. Karen looked up, all fake surprise. "Mr. Shaw, again, we're simply doing our due diligence. As per Section 5, Paragraph 12 of Desert Hills Estates Community Guidelines. This isn't your community. This is private land. This isn't under your jurisdiction." She smiled like a school principal dealing with an uncooperative parent. "We've already addressed this. Ownership is pending legal confirmation, but for now, we must ensure compliance with the appearance and safety standards." Rick piped in, nodding toward Lexi's patio furniture. "That umbrella isn't regulation color." I blinked at him. "You're trespassing and you're critiquing her umbrella." The shorter guy, David, I think, was still jiggling the side gate. "It's locked," he called out. "We'll need access." "No," I said. "You need to leave." Karen pulled a laminated sheet from her folder and handed it to me. "Here's the notice of inspection. We're authorized to enter for verification purposes. It's all above board." I didn't even bother reading it. "This is a forgery. You've already been notified via my attorney that any further action on this land is unlawful." She shrugged. "Our legal team disagrees." That's when David popped the latch. I heard the metallic click, then the squeal of hinges. He'd forced open the back gate with a bolt cutter. I ran forward as he stepped 1 foot into the backyard. The cameras got everything. His face, his hands, the tool, the motion. "You just broke into my property," I snapped. He froze. Deer in the headlights. I was instructed. I cut him off, pulling out my phone and calling the police in real time. Karen tried to smooth it over. "Let's not escalate. We're just trying to maintain order. These homes, I said, don't belong to you. and your people just committed felony trespass." While I was on the line with dispatch, Karen began walking briskly back toward the street. Rick and David followed her, visibly less confident than before. I got the license plate on their car before they pulled away. Lexi came out, visibly shaken. They were trying to take pictures through the windows. Said they'd issue a citation for the lawn disorder if I didn't clean the clippings. "It's a desert, Lex," I said. "There is no lawn." The police arrived 10 minutes later, same tired Deputy Peters as last time, now with a new officer in tow. I showed them the footage, the broken latch, the bolt cutter dent in the metal. This time, Peters didn't brush it off so easily. "We'll make a report," he said. "Can't make an arrest without a warrant, but this'll be submitted to the DA." The second officer added, "You should reinforce this gate. Looks like they came prepared." I nodded. "Believe me, it's already on the list." That night, I replaced the gate lock with a hardened steel padlock, installed motion-triggered floodlights, added a second security DVR. Every angle, every approach was now under surveillance. But I also filed a criminal trespass complaint, not civil, and attached the full video log. Deborah took one look and grinned. "This is gold. They just handed us Exhibit A." "Let's make it hurt," I told her. The summons hit my inbox like a slap. Notice of hearing, petition for eviction, Clark County Civil Division. I stared at it for a long moment, then opened the attachment. The plaintiff, Lass Horizon Holdings, LLC. The defendant, Aiden Shaw, listed as tenant in unauthorized occupation. The grounds, violation of HOA occupancy regulations and failure to vacate post-title transfer. I forwarded it to Deborah with the subject line, "They really think this is going to work?" Her response came fast. "Good, let them. Now we get to dismantle them." In open court. The hearing was scheduled for Thursday. We arrived early, Deborah in a razor-sharp navy suit, and me in the cleanest button-down shirt I owned that didn't smell like sawdust and insulation foam. The other side showed up 10 minutes late. A junior attorney in an ill-fitting blazer carrying a briefcase too big for his purpose. No sign of Karen, no one from the HOA, just a paper pusher with too much confidence and too little material. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 60s, called the session to order. The opposing counsel launched into his prepared remarks. A series of buzzwords, community obligations, lawful jurisdictional oversight, and recognized HOA governance procedures. He waved a printed deed in the air like it was a winning lottery. "Ticket." When it was our turn, Deborah stood up like she'd been waiting her whole life for this. "Your Honor," she said, calm but crisp. "This entire case rests on the validity of a single document, a deed that allegedly transferred ownership of my client's property to Lass Horizon Holdings. We will demonstrate that this document is not just invalid but fraudulent, and we will show without ambiguity that this so-called ownership transfer was orchestrated by individuals affiliated with the plaintiff to gain illegal jurisdiction over land they never controlled." The judge narrowed her eyes. "That's a serious allegation, Counselor." Deborah nodded, "which is why we brought receipts. We submitted everything, certified copies of the original deed in my name, time-stamped footage of the backyard break-in, a forensic analysis of the forged signature, and, most damning of all, an affidavit from the real notary public whose seal appeared on the fake deed, confirming he had been on vacation in Oregon the day the document was supposedly signed." The opposing attorney visibly shrank. Deborah wasn't done. We also obtained transaction logs from the county recorder's office. There was no escrow filing, no transfer tax paid, no buyer disclosure forms. It was a hand-submitted document that bypassed standard review, and it was approved because the HOA had previously filed mass deed changes through this same channel, building trust with the clerk. A mistake that ends today. The judge looked over the files for several long minutes. She tapped the forged deed with a pen. "This signature looks off," she said flatly. "It's laughable, Your Honor," Deborah replied. "If Mr. Shaw was going to sign away a $500,000 property, I promise he wouldn't do it on a Thursday in pencil at a notary who wasn't in the state." The judge leaned back in her chair. "Do you have anything else, Counselor?" The young HOA lawyer tried to stammer out a protest. "Your Honor, the HOA was acting in good faith. Initiating eviction proceedings based on an invalid deed is not good faith," she snapped. "And entering private property, altering it, and threatening residents. That's closer to criminal behavior than civil disagreement." She set the papers down and looked directly at me. "Mr. Shaw, you're not to be removed from your property. The court recognizes your ownership until further notice. Petition for eviction is denied. Then, to the other side, and I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for possible charges related to fraudulent filings and unlawful entry. I suggest your clients retain criminal counsel. The gavel hit the bench. Just like that, everything shifted. As we walked out of the courtroom, Deborah grinned at me. One domino down. I nodded. And a whole damn row still standing. That afternoon, I posted the judge's ruling, laminated, certified, and blown up to 11 by 17, next to each of my no HOA signs. Karen didn't show up that night, but someone, probably one of her minions, drove slowly past my house around midnight. Headlights off. I waved. The morning after the hearing, I stood in my driveway sipping black coffee and staring at the still visible paint line where the HOA had so helpfully repainted my back gate. I'd considered sanding it down myself, but decided to leave it for now. A scar worth keeping. Proof of the intrusion. Deborah called just before 8. I filed your counterclaim, she said. Civil trespass, attempted fraud, and unlawful installation of surveillance equipment. Oh, and I sent them a little gift. That gift turned out to be a cease and desist letter, hand-delivered to the HOA's office, along with a formal demand for removal of all unauthorized installations, signage, and surveillance devices from both my lots within 72 hours. The kicker? We included a clause that threatened a lawsuit for 6 figures in damages if they failed to comply. It wasn't just a slap. It was a lined-up legal punch with a steel ring. I didn't have to wait long for the fallout. That afternoon, I noticed one of the HOA's cameras, the one they'd bolted to the pine on the rental side, had disappeared. Just gone. No crew. No apology. No warning. By nightfall, the banner was gone too. Like it had never been there. Silent retreat. But I wasn't satisfied with just watching them backpedal. I wanted a paper trail, something that would bury this HOA the next time they tried to rise again. So I took it one step further. I filed an unlawful detainer notice against Los Horizon Holdings for my rental lot. Yeah, you read that right. I served them an eviction notice. Lexi helped me hang a duplicate copy in the window right next to the HOA's old flyer that she'd kept just for irony. Beneath it, I stapled a printed copy of the judge's ruling from 2 days earlier, just in case any of their field officers still thought they had business here. Then came the letter, folded in thirds. No return address. Just slid under my front door one evening like we were in a Cold War spy movie. Inside, a typed message. Your actions are destabilizing the neighborhood. The community expects harmony, not hostility. The board is prepared to offer a compromise if you retract your legal filings and agree to discuss integration under revised HOA terms. I read it twice. Then I laughed for a full minute. Integration? Into what? A criminal racket with matching beige mailboxes. Deborah framed it differently. This isn't a threat. It's panic. They know they screwed up. They're trying to stall and salvage what's left before this becomes a full-on expose. The next day, I got confirmation from an anonymous source Deborah had dug up, a former HOA secretary who'd resigned quietly 3 months prior. Her email was simple but explosive. Karen used HOA funds to finance the Shell LLC. There was no board vote. She ran everything through a discretionary improvement budget and claimed it was for amenity acquisition. Check the financials. They're cooked. That was the crack we needed. While Deborah worked with a forensic accountant to start peeling back the layers of HOA's financials, I upgraded the security perimeter, new locks, reinforced hinges, and motion alarms. Lexi got a free ring system out of it. I even put up an industrial sign at the shared alley that read, "Private property not subject to HOA governance, entry by permission only." It wasn't subtle. That was the point. And then, as if to prove how far off the rails they'd gone, HOA sent one final warning shot, a letter taped to the mailbox this time, citing Lexi for improper waste container storage and non-conforming satellite dish placement, neither of which were even remotely true. But this time, I didn't even bother with a response. I forwarded it to Deborah. She added it to the claim. I also called in a favor with a local journalist I'd once helped remodel a duplex for, the kind of guy who loved a small-town scandal with a meaty villain and a working-class hero. I gave him everything: the forged deed, the fake inspections, the broken gate, the anonymous tip about the budget fraud. He listened, took notes, then said, This is going to explode. I smiled. That's the plan. By Friday morning, I had a fresh voicemail from the local ABC affiliate asking for an interview. The journalist I tipped off, he didn't just write the article. He handed it to his editor with the kind of grin that meant clickbait gold. The headline practically wrote itself. HOA president linked to fraudulent land grab. Local man fights back with deed and security footage. Within hours, it was everywhere. Twitter, Facebook groups, even Reddit. I'd barely finished my breakfast when I saw the first neighborhood Facebook comment. Wait, isn't that the crazy HOA lady from Desert Hills? By noon, someone had uploaded drone footage of the HOA's clubhouse. The comment section was on fire. Memes followed. By 2 p.m., someone had photoshopped Karen's face onto the Monopoly man being dragged away in handcuffs. I thought that would make her lay low. I should have known better. That evening, I heard the unmistakable hum of a high-end SUV idling outside. I looked out my office window, and yep, there she was. Karen Browning, wearing a spotless white pantsuit like she was walking into a courtroom and not the scene of her own undoing. She marched up my walkway, flanked by two guys I hadn't seen before. Older, bigger, looked ex-military or corporate security. Probably not even HOA members, just muscle. I stepped outside, not because I wanted to talk, but because I didn't want them thinking they could do anything under cover of silence. "You've made a very big mistake," she said, without preamble. "Which one exactly?" I asked. "Installing cameras on property you don't own, forging a deed, or sending strangers to rattle my tenant." She didn't flinch. "You think you've won. You haven't. What you've done is disrupted a legal acquisition process protected under private corporate statute. The HOA has rights." "No," I said, "corporate fraud doesn't grant jurisdiction, especially when the acquisition was built on forged documents and ghost companies. You're not expanding amenities, Karen. You're committing wire fraud." Her lip twitched. "That's slander." "No," I smiled. "That's a felony." She handed me a thick envelope. "This is a cease and desist letter from our legal team. If you don't retract your false claims and vacate both properties within 15 days, we will escalate this to the Civil Superior Court." I didn't even touch it. "You can leave that in the trash on your way out." Her goons took a step forward, but I tilted my phone toward them, live streaming the whole exchange directly to the journalist's page. The red recording icon glowed like a siren. "Wave to the camera," I said. "It's got decent range." She hesitated, then without a word turned on her heel and walked back to the car. The two goons glared but followed. The envelope remained on the ground. I didn't even bend to pick it up. 2 hours later, I got a call from Deborah. "The press just published part 2. The HOA's finances are officially under audit. The county assessor's office wants to talk to you." "Good," I said, "because I'm about to file a lien." She paused. "You're going nuclear?" "Karen wants a war? Let's go scorched earth." I had my CPA pull title insurance records and HOA filings. With Deborah's help, we filed a civil lien for damages against Last Horizon Holdings, backed by the now public evidence of fraudulent ownership filings. Then we filed a second one against the HOA itself for illegal encroachment and malicious trespass. The court accepted both. That meant any assets tied to HOA bank accounts were now effectively frozen pending resolution. The next morning, the HOA's own management software locked out half their board. Emails leaked, desperate, rambling, panicked. One read, "Karen's exposing us all. She was never supposed to touch property law." And just like that, the cracks became fractures. By Sunday, 3 HOA board members had resigned. The clubhouse was shuttered. The HOA website was under maintenance. A mobile shredding truck was seen parked near the office for 2 hours. Neighbors started knocking on my door, asking what was happening, some apologizing for supporting the wrong team. I told them I wasn't interested in revenge. I was just protecting what was mine, but inside, I was already planning my next move. By Tuesday morning, the HOA was hemorrhaging board members faster than a sinking boat leaks water. Karen, however, stayed put, still calling herself president, still pretending this was a misunderstanding and not a RICO-worthy fraud operation unraveling at high speed. But the noose was tightening, and she had to feel it. Deborah called. Her voice was electric. "We've got a hearing. Full civil review. Judge Radcliffe, Thursday morning. You'll want to bring everything." I didn't need to ask what everything meant. The videos, the deed history, the lien filings, the financial audit reports. We had a mountain of evidence. And thanks to a late-night tip from the former HOA secretary, we now had proof that HOA funds were funneled through Last Horizon Holdings to purchase not just my lot, but at least 3 other parcels, all off HOA territory. Worse, the funds came from a maintenance reserve account earmarked for neighborhood sidewalks and pool repair. Karen had literally stolen her neighbor's sidewalks to build an empire that didn't exist. Thursday's court session felt less like a hearing and more like a surgical takedown. Karen actually showed up. She wore a charcoal pantsuit and that same smug expression she always wore, but this time her confidence looked thinner, like a cheap veneer. The courtroom was half full, several neighbors attending, curious about the fallout. A local news crew hovered outside. Judge Radcliffe was no nonsense. He barely let HOA's attorney begin his preamble before cutting him off. "Is the defendant present?" Karen stood. "I am president of Desert Hills Estates, Your Honor." "Sit down. You're not on trial yet, but you may be soon." Deborah began calmly, methodically, laying out the chain of events: the forged deed, the shell company, the unauthorized eviction attempts, the installed surveillance, the false notices to tenants. Every document came with exhibits. Every claim came with footage. Then came the financial report. She dropped it on the table like a brick. "Your Honor, the HOA diverted community funds to an offshore managed LLC controlled by the sitting president without board approval or homeowner disclosure. The funds were used to simulate property purchases and generate legal pressure on private owners not under HOA jurisdiction." Then she handed over the email logs. One of them, from Karen to a board treasurer, said plainly, "If the owners don't comply, we'll bankrupt them in court. Most can't afford to fight." You could feel the room shift. Karen stood up uninvited. "This is a smear campaign. Aiden Shaw is manipulating public perception. This is all exaggerated." The judge slammed his palm on the bench. "Enough." He looked at her. "Ms. Browning, I am freezing all operations of Desert Hills Estates HOA effective immediately. I am ordering a full audit by a court-appointed fiduciary. And I am referring your financial conduct to the Nevada State Attorney General for review." Karen sat down, or rather collapsed into the chair, but that wasn't the end. The bailiff walked over with a second envelope, this one not from our side. It was from the Clark County District Attorney's Office, an arrest warrant. Charges included fraud, falsification of legal documents, unauthorized surveillance, and misuse of public funds. They arrested Karen in the courtroom. She didn't scream. She didn't even protest. Just sat there, frozen, while the cuffs clicked around her wrists. The courtroom murmured. Someone in the back whispered, "Finally." Outside, the cameras rolled. Deborah smiled. "You just turned a personal nightmare into a case study in how to dismantle a corrupt HOA." I laughed. "I just wanted my damn gate back." That evening, I got a call from Lexi. "So, is it over?" "Almost," I said. "One last thing left to do." 3 weeks later, I stood in front of the old HOA office building, keys in hand. It was an unremarkable beige structure sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a failed frozen yogurt shop, the kind of place that screamed bureaucratic purgatory. But now it was mine. I'd bought it at a county lien auction for exactly $1, the opening bid, and the only one placed. No one else wanted it. Not after what happened. Karen, she was still in jail. 3 felony charges and a federal review pending. Her bail had been set so high that even her smug real estate friends didn't want to touch it. Deborah told me she might be looking at 12 years without parole. Turns out forging property documents and stealing community funds is frowned upon even in Nevada. The HOA disbanded. The judge had dissolved its charter. The fiduciary we'd worked with unearthed even more illegal transfers, dozens of them. The state had revoked their authority, and the residents had formed a voluntary association instead. One with no power, no rules, just neighbors talking to each other like human beings. What a concept. As for me, I got to work. The old HOA office was stripped of everything useful, but the bones were solid. I had it gutted, refinished, and turned it into a material warehouse and design studio for my construction company. I left the HOA boardroom sign on the main door, though, just as a reminder. Out front, I installed a new metal sign, black powder-coated steel, laser-cut with sharp lettering. It read, "Private property not under HOA governance. Trespassers will be documented, publicly mocked, and legally ruined." I also put a smaller sign under it. "Thanks for trying to buy my house." I bought your office instead. Lexi helped me install it. She brought a bottle of champagne and a cordless drill. We toasted on the porch as the sun went down, the old Desert Hill sign creaking in the wind behind us. You're really not going to sell either house? She asked. Nope, I said. They're mine. Always were. Always will be. And the office. It's mine too. I grinned. And best of all, it's HOA-free real estate. That night, I finally slept with the windows open. No cameras, no notices, no fake fines, no HOA officers creeping around, just quiet and freedom.